Welcome to the Art Box, recorded in our beautiful Mesquite, Nevada, and sponsored by the Virgin Valley Artists Association. Our association provides creative opportunities for all ages. Get creative with us at the Mesquite Fine Arts Center, 15 West Mesquite Boulevard, or find us online at mesquitefineartscenter.com or on Facebook, The Art Box.
Hi, Cody. How are you having a good day?
Yeah, is this Linda?
It is.
Hi. Yeah, I'm having a pretty good day.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm just overwhelmed with your art and your message.
Oh,
it's
thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I actually just went out in the desert yesterday. Let's see, yesterday was, well, no, I went Saturday, and that was the day right before. I don't know how you guys got the storm, but it just snowed again in Utah.
Oh, my gosh. We had a lot of wind, but no snow here, of course.
It was a blizzard in Salt Lake City, which is pretty rare for this time of year, but yeah, I guess winter's back for a little bit.
Yeah, well, I had, Krista Lamb, a friend of mine up there, she put a picture on Facebook and said something about happy spring or something like that. I'm like, what is she talking about?
I don't think people are responding, well to the, we're ready for spring for sure. But boy, yeah, it'll go away. It's all going to melt. We need the moisture.
Well, and that's the thing. We need the moisture, so I never complain. Well, I do complain about everything, but I don't complain.
That's my category. Yeah,
I don't complain about that.
Yeah, we need the moisture. That's where I'll leave it. But
well, Cody, you want to tell us your story?
Yeah. I mean, where do you guys want me to start?
You were born and raised in Utah. That's where we want you to start.
Okay. Well, at birth, I was a feisty one. No, born and raised in Utah. I spent a lot of my time, early childhood, with my grandparents, which lived in a small rural town called Cedar Fort, and that's how I know if somebody's from Utah or not. When they ask where I'm from, and if I throw that town out there, if they know where that's at, then I know they know what they're talking about. Because to most people, it probably just looks like a scattering of mailboxes on the side of a lonely desert highway. There's a town out there, and I spent most of my childhood there, which probably explains a lot.
Where's that in relationship to Salt Lake City?
Probably about 2 hours away. Oh, sorry about that too. I have trains go by my place.
Oh, that's okay because it's a podcast. We've got to have
ambient sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's about 2 hours out of Salt Lake City. Kind of central Utah, about 45 minutes, an hour west of Utah Lake. So it's out there in the Junipers. It's at the base of the Ochre Mountains. So I was exposed right there. My grandparents had a large cabin in the Junipers. So it was great. Sagebrush and junipers on one side and then some farm fields and stuff on the other side. So I could just kind of go wild as a kid.
And you had mentioned in your biography that your father died when you were very young. Your mother had 5 children, and so she had to work nights and sleep during the day?
Yeah. It was a bit of a struggle. So my father passed away when I was about 11. And my mother had 5 kids. And I had one younger than me. She was, about 8 at the time. But can you imagine? I have 5 kids. Single mother, so she was busy trying to make ends meet. So it kind of left me to my own devices and, hence spending lots of time with my grandparents.
And that had to affect you emotionally. Do you think that came out in your art as well?
Definitely. I mean, being exposed to a traumatic death event like that, at 11 years old, I think that definitely accelerated my thoughts of like mortality and lots of stuff that, being, an adult now that is part of life, but having that kick in the gear in those formative years, I think pushed me a little bit deeper into some of my themes. Definitely. I don't think it definitely did. I mean, for better or worse, it was a struggle, but coming out on the other side, I can see now how that kind of formed, or I tried to form anyway, some opinions around that.
Drawing can often be very calming and peaceful because you're so focusing on that. And I wondered if that's part of the reason you started drawing at a young age.
Like I say, I think it pushed me deeper into a lot of that, the traumatic event like that. But I think I was already doing that beforehand. I was born needing some kind of therapy.
Okay.
So I was always just sticking to, drawing late in the night, all day long, always kind of artistic that way at pretty much from when I could pick up a pen or a crayon. It started out that way. So, and it still continues like that. I had, a work meeting earlier today, and how when you're on those Zoom things, it's not as nerve-wracking as just a phone call.
Are you gonna tell me you doodled in the margins during the whole meeting?
I turned the laptop a certain way, so so it looks very office-like, but I'm staring at a huge painting, and I found that calms me down because that quick, it just kind of takes my mind right back into that whole zone, and anxiety everything just kind of melts away. And it's like, I guess, for others, it'd be the equivalent of taking a couple really deep breaths. But that brings me right back into the zone. And in fact, I'm staring at one right now.
Oh.
So,
well, hopefully this won't be too stressful.
No, it's not stressful at all. But, it is. It's very therapeutic getting into that flow of drawing or painting or something like that. I mean, I think everyone should do it. Artist or non-artist or whatever, everybody should be experimenting in some way like that just to see, if it's helpful for, stress management or various other problems.
Maybe I'm naive, but I think almost everybody does. It may not be painting.
Yeah. In some form or another. Yeah, probably. Photography, music, some kind of expression that takes you out of your headspace a little bit and relaxes. Maybe it's kind of tapping into that, lucid state, kind of that subconscious level a little bit. Opens that up a little bit.
Sure.
I like to think so.
And you had mentioned that you have dyslexia, and so you're very much a visual person.
Yes. Before I ever knew what dyslexia was, it was pretty clear that that's my primary form of, communication or learning or, everything really. I always could read, but as far as spelling and then just sometimes blanking out when it comes to kind of structural, phrases and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been a struggle, and again, I think that's probably just pushed me more visual throughout my life. I'm willing to bet that's something a lot of visual artists, if they don't know it already, there's probably a little bit of that going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that affects a person's ability to read, write, and spell accurately and fluently. It is characterized by difficulties with phonological processing, which involves recognizing and manipulating the sounds of language. Individuals with dyslexia may have trouble decoding words, spelling, and understanding written text. It is important to note that dyslexia is not related to intelligence and does not reflect a lack of effort or motivation. Overall, while dyslexia may present challenges in certain aspects of life, it can also contribute to unique perspectives, talents, and strengths, which can be celebrated and nurtured through artistic expression.
Now, fast forward to college. You earned a Bachelor of Arts, correct?
I did. Yeah, at Utah Valley University. So kind of coming from that background a little bit, and I had started a career with the Forest Service fairly early as well. I was surrounded with a lot of people with, different various college backgrounds and stuff. And I knew I wanted to do something in art. So I thought, well, it's either some kind of biology or art. And so I went the art direction.
Sure.
And that was a good, foot into the academic door, I guess you could say, starting that. I got my BFA. I went to the University of Utah, attended there, and an anthropology program as well.
What do you do at the Forest Service?
A little of everything, but right now I'm kind of in charge of the volunteers.
Okay.
Wasatch Cache, yeah.
Is that like herding cats?
It can be. I guess it depends on what group, but again, it's a very proactive way to get people involved with the environment.
Sure.
So that kind of fit the bill right there. Sometimes it's like herding cats. I guess it depends what group you're working with, Boy Scouts or dedicated hunters or even a corporate group. Most of the time it's pretty good. It's nice being around so many proactive people that want to get out there and make a difference.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and there's a lot out west.
There is, very much so. Yeah, there's a good number. I mean, yeah, it's thousands of volunteers every year. So, and that's absolutely wonderful. I think that's the only way I can handle a day job because, the art keeps pulling me this way.
Yeah.
I need something pretty smooth as far as, real world stuff.
I can't think of a better day job for a landscape painter than working with the land as a forest ranger. That has to be wonderful. And I read on your site that your hikes really impact and motivate you as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So it is perfect. It keeps me, patrolling the Wasatch a whole bunch. I'm all over in the mountains for the day job. When I do have to kind of set up organized meetings and stuff like that, again, it's with very proactive, environmentally minded people. And then the rest of the time, it's in the studio painting or out doing side trips to the desert, more or less doing the same thing. Everything in my life is just kind of centered around art and the environment in one way or another. And that's where I like it.
Cody, have you ever heard of Morgan Sogren?
I think so. A writer?
Yes, she just published a book by the name of Path of Light. And she writes for Torrey House Press.
Torrey House Press, yeah. I know a lot of their,
And in reading about you, what you sent us, I think you are Morgan. You are Morgan with paint, where I'll call her Cody with words. Yeah,
well, I bet I'm a little more gruff than she is, and she might be a more better people person. But no, I do. I know of her. I don't know her personally, but I can see that. Online, I've met so many wonderful people and like minds out there, for sure, that spend most of their time out there in the desert and really get it.
Yeah. If you get a chance, read her book, and sometime, you two will have to meet. Absolutely. Because there's so many similarities. I love it.
She talks about.
I figured we'd cross paths somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere. Yeah,
that's exactly where you would cross paths, in the middle of nowhere.
That can happen for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about your studio. Okay, assume that's at your house or.
Well, I have a studio apartment, yes. So half of it is painting space and various other things that you'd expect a visual artist to have around. And then, yes, the living space in that at the moment.
Okay. Well, then my question here is how often do you do plein air?
Not as much as I'd like, but... So obviously some of my larger oil paintings, I'm not going to be able to get that out on location. But photography and sketching, I do quite a bit on my trips, especially the extended ones. In fact, every single one at some point or another. I used to leave really nice sketches, like when I'd go somewhere like in the Bears Ears or something like that, and there would be a kind of a popular site, although remote site, like a cliff dwelling or something like that. I would sketch something really nice. I'd bring this good paper, and then I'd put it, sometimes when they have those registry boxes tucked away in some of these sites, I would just throw it in there. So somewhere out there, somebody's got a handful of some pretty nice little sketches.
That is awesome. I love that idea.
I mean, how cool would that be? I'm just kind of gift that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we just bought one on eBay.
Oh, yeah, right. I've thought about going into some of these BLM ranger stations and stuff just to see what's framed up on their wall. And be like, hey, now, I know where you got that.
Right. I found it interesting that how you create your own painting surface. I've never heard of that. You want to describe your canvases?
Yeah, I can do that. So it's, well, I learned it from somebody who learned it from, I think, somebody in Europe. So it's a thing that, some painters and definitely before in the past have done. But I start with like a really nice aluminum backing. And that comes in various different styles and whatever's out there, supply chain and everything. There's been some change in that. But so as far as the aluminum, that's never going to rust, and it's very durable. It's got a composite in between it with another sheet of aluminum. So it's actually 2 thin sheets of aluminum. And then I buy a really nice Belgian linen.
Belgium linen refers to a type of canvas material that is often used by artists for painting. It is considered one of the highest quality options for canvas due to its durability, smooth texture, and archival properties. Here are some key characteristics of Belgium linen for painting. Material: Belgium linen is made from flax fibers, which are woven together to create a sturdy and resilient canvas surface. Flax is known for its strength and flexibility, making it an ideal material for canvas that will endure the stresses of painting and stretching. Texture: Belgium linen typically has a smooth and tight weave, providing a consistent surface for painting. The fine texture of the linen allows for precise brushwork and detail in the artwork. Absorbency: linen canvas has a moderate absorbency, allowing paint to adhere well to the surface without excessive absorption. This allows for greater control over the application of paint and helps to preserve the vibrancy of colors. Archival quality: Belgium linen is often considered to be archival quality, meaning that it is resistant to deterioration over time. It is less prone to stretching, sagging, or becoming brittle compared to lower quality canvas materials. Preparation: Belgium linen is typically available in a variety of sizes and formats, including pre-stretched canvases and rolls of unprimed or pre-primed linen. Artists may choose to prime the linen with gesso or other priming materials to further enhance its surface characteristics and prepare it for painting. Overall, Belgium linen is prized by artists for its superior quality and performance, making it a popular choice for professional painters and art conservators alike. While it may be more expensive than other types of canvas, many artists consider it to be a worthwhile investment due to its longevity and the exceptional results it can yield in their artwork.
Which is very smooth, typically. And then I adhere that to the aluminum after I sand down the aluminum. So the glue, this rabbit skin glue stuff, which is a very old world, like old masters, rabbit skin glue. It's been around for a long time.
Rabbit glue, also known as rabbit skin glue or hide glue, is a natural adhesive derived from collagen proteins found in the skin and connective tissues of rabbits or other animals. It has been used for centuries as a traditional adhesive in various applications, including woodworking, bookbinding, and painting. While rabbit glue has been widely used for centuries, it is less common in modern applications due to the availability of synthetic adhesives with similar properties and greater convenience. However, it continues to be valued by artists, conservators, and craftsmen for its natural, reversible, and archival qualities.
Yeah. And that sizes the Belgian linen to the aluminum. And then a little more sanding. There's actually a lot of sanding between all these steps. And then I prime it with flake white and make sure that's smooth. And I sand it, put down another layer, and I sand that. So in the end, I end up with a really nice, very light, but still hard surface. So I'm painting on linen, but at the same time, I can take a painting knife or something to it and really thrash it because it's not going to poke through. It's not just on a frame. It's a solid surface, and which is, what I prefer. And then I take it from there. So it's kind of an elaborate process. You got to cook the glue, you got to sand the aluminum, you got to buy all these things, cut everything just right. So it usually takes, I do 3 or 4 different sizes at a time, but that could take a couple days in itself. And then to get them from raw material to something ready to paint on usually takes a couple months. So it's kind of a lot of work. People have asked me before, why don't you just, buy something? But, it costs a lot, and then buying something of like in that realm of quality, it always ends up being a little too manufactured and smooth. And even with all the sanding and everything I do, there's a certain rawness to it and a couple imperfections that play perfectly right into the painting.
Oh my. Is it hard sometimes to make yourself do this when you want to just start painting, or is this what you do when you get stuck? Or
Well, I'm pretty good with just the craft and the trade aspects of it, like making the canvas and stuff like that. I like doing that, and yes, it does take up some time, but I think in doing that, it builds up all that pressure to finally be able to just let loose with that kind of subconscious painting mind after, such a structured sanding and then layer and then this step and that step, finally when I'm ready to, and I always make sure I have a couple kind of ready to go. So it's never like, oh, I really want to paint right now, but I've got to make canvas. No, I'm surrounded right now in my studio with a large blank one, just begging for some paint.
Now, that was going to be my next question. Do you make any pre? So you're not making it for one special painting. You've got a number and couple different sizes.
No, I'm generally making it for one special painting.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes that can change. I'm largely commission based, so I'll have a general size and an idea of what the painting's going to be before I start making the canvas for it. With that said, things change. I have a couple commissions going on at the same time. I have a couple passion projects. Even if I'm starting one that's not for a particular commission, I have an idea what it's going to be for. So really just from like raw materials, going around to these industrial places and buying aluminum, I already have this like painting in my mind of what that's going to turn into. And again, I'm adaptable. Often things change quite a bit, but I have an idea and I kind of go with the flow. If, these unpredictable things happen as far as like, oh, the paint's not going on this way, or I end up having to paint this on that, I'll make it work for sure. But
that's incredible that there's so much work to be done.
it is
Before the first paint hits canvas.
Yeah, I'm not buying. I'm not just buying the canvas. And then, with the supply changes and the whole, pandemic and everything going on the past couple of years, it's thrown some of this process for a little bit of a loop. I've had to change this or that, and what I do, different things aren't available anymore, or it took longer than I thought to get certain, like Belgian linen, for example, and definitely the aluminum. I've had to, try and experiment a couple different ways with that. But that's just my painting. That's just for the oil paint. As far as the water-based materials and mixed media stuff, a lot of that is just a really nice paper, and I haven't had a problem tracking that down.
Oh, that's good. Cody, some of our artists we've interviewed have told us that they've changed to certain non-toxic oil paints. So I was curious what oils you like to work with.
Well, hopefully they're not too toxic. I've definitely, I know a lot of people have kind of switched. They've left oil paint altogether just to go for something less toxic, like, watercolors or something like that. I don't ever use a lot of the extremely toxic, like urethanes and different mediums that you can mix with it. They like take Gamsol or something like that to clean the brushes. I usually stay just with raw oil paint. So I'm using dish soap to wash my brushes. No harsh chemical that way or anything. I have in the past, and just cleanup alone and logistics, as far as doing that, it doesn't really work well in a live-work space. I definitely, I get paint on the floor sometimes.
I was going to ask you about what your studio looks like. So
it's pretty cool.
Is it messy? Does it have a lot of splatters?
No, not so much. I'm a little more tidy than that, but just the amount that I paint in here, happy little accents for sure. But no, it's part museum, part painting studio, but it's my happy space. I keep it kind of tidy If it gets too messy, then it gets a little chaotic. Oh, it's not too bad. I bet it's a place you guys would really like.
I know I would for sure.
Now, Linda would be jealous.
I would be.
Yeah, because Linda's always talking about, where's she going to paint in her house? Can she move in here? Can her husband move his stuff over here? What can they do?
Well, you guys, Mesquite and out there in the, in the realm of the Mojave and everything else, I have some inspirational, pieces here and there. So definitely be a space you guys would dig, I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you talk about the messages or stories you aim to convey through your artwork? And I just want to go back and touch on that. You said somewhere here, you said art is activism.
Absolutely. So I'm very, environmentally minded. And I've always felt that, like, my artwork, you have a lot of, like, people out there in the art world that are very successful, and it is great to have a wonderful drawing or painting or something like that. But I've always felt like it's got to have some kind of, like, soul to it. And for better or worse, I've really, like, the Western environment's very important to me. And if my work doesn't speak in some shape or form to that, then what's the point? That's the way I see it. Then why am I even doing this in the first place? It is my voice. And that's what I want to talk about. It's definitely it is a form of activism. Just being able to paint and keep some kind of a career and being able to do that throughout your life is, it's almost like protest nowadays in today's world. Everyone gets so caught up with just trying to survive, especially artists. How do you make a living or keep doing the things you love to do as far as painting and stuff like that? So you're always fighting against a grain right there. And then, let me see here, preservation for the environment, sense of prehistoric sites. So that's been huge with my work lately. The state of Utah just commissioned a piece of a landscape that had some rock art in it. And I think they like the message of just trying to convey that to people, like these important sites, and get a little more exposure to them. As far as, like, you don't have to go necessarily visit the site, and you don't have to say exactly where the site is, but you're making people aware of it just through the artwork. You're connecting people with that, and you're reminding them there are these delicate sites out there in the state. And just people relating to that, the awareness is a huge part of it. If they don't know these sites are out there, they don't feel some kind of connection with it, then why are people going to invest in wanting to protect that, future generations? So being able to bring that to life through my paintings and get exposure, in public spaces, and even like the podcast right now, being able to talk about it is a form of, people are now aware of it a little bit more. They can research it and then be more invested in possibly being able to, protect it in the future.
You mentioned, and speaking of activism, so you mentioned Edward Abbey, and I just love Edward Abbey books, and I'm sure he was a crusty old dude and everything. But what?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, where was I at? I was at Arches one time, and I mentioned him in the ranger station there, and they were like, "We hate him here."
Yeah.
So, but what? Just Delvey, what do you think he'd be thinking now?
Well, okay, so obviously, wow, there's a lot of different faces there to someone like that. And a lot of it is not aged well, different views from a different time. I think that with all that aside, and just looking at some of his environmental views, he'd probably be shocked. Look at somewhere like Arches. It's gone from like somebody complaining and worried about there being too much traffic to it being like this whole other thing. I don't think you're really getting a wilderness experience going there. But with that said, it plays an important role in getting people from all around the world to expose themselves to that. So if maybe it's a little bit more of a sacrificial park, then that might relieve pressure off, more sensitive parks that don't have that. So it's all part of, I'm sure, some management plan. There's still some really wonderful spots out there, wilderness study areas. The Forest Service has their wilderness areas. There's slivers here and there. And everything, one thing I know he believed in is everything changes and everything's in motion. Things are going to change. They could get bad for a while and they could get better. as far as, what we have going on with being able to get out in the environment. Stegner, Abby, there's a lot of Craig Childs, Terry Tempest, there's a lot of people that have a lot to say about what we have going on right now. But I think it all comes down to just, loving what is left and appreciating and being able to adapt and find some kind of harmony and balance with our environment. Everybody always wants to talk about protection, and as if the environment is this different thing, set on a shelf that we need to look at, opposed to that we're actually in it. We should find balance instead of disconnecting from it.
Yeah, it's just patiently waiting for us to go away, so it can get back to norm.
I think about that, doing a lot of these different paintings right now with the rock art. Something that was 8,000 years old. The amount of time spaced out there, and yet it's still out there. It catches the sun every morning. Mm-hmm. Puts things in perspective for sure.
Cody, want to talk about some of your favorite projects, including your large-scale painting procession?
Yeah, I have been working on some very large paintings lately. Procession, I guess that one was born on one of these little excursions. I was taking some acquaintances out to an area, and we were hiking up through, and we didn't really intend on visiting that particular site, but we stumbled upon it, and it was, pretty mind-blowing. It was a wonderful day, and it really stuck with these people, and they said, hey, we'd love to commission a painting of that. And I thought, well, it's a large rock art panel in a even larger landscape, and to be able to bring that to life, it ended up being 8 feet long, 4 feet wide, which might have been a little bit bigger than they were anticipating. But
oh wow,
yeah, it ended up taking a good chunk of time to complete. But yeah, it was a hit. I loved doing it. It shows all the way through the work. And that's been a catalyst for getting the state commission. It won some awards in some different state shows. They bought the photo rights for it. I said it wasn't available for purchase. And it also talked a lot about the conservation and the Bears Ears, issue and what we have going on there in the state of Utah. It really fit the bill in all these different categories. And that's kind of pushed me, the last few paintings, doing things in that realm. The state wanted something in similar size, similar style. And then I've been working on this project. There's an artifact housed at the University of Utah in the Natural History Museum. And it's from an undisclosed location. It was donated by some rancher in the early or late 70s. And I recognized, they had this black and white photograph of this large boulder with rock art on it. They had this black and white photograph of the rancher standing by it, and there was mountains in the background. And I recognized the mountains.
Oh, wow.
So I got a copy of this black and white photograph through the museum, and I took it out, and I was holding it up, stumbling kind of through the sagebrush, and sure enough, I fit the background right to the actual mountains. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I can't believe I wandered around so much that I recognized this. And then I saw there were still survey markers where they had removed the boulder, years ago. And it's still standing out there. And I thought, and it just sparked this idea of, I'm gonna work with the museum, and I'm gonna photograph the boulder in the museum as if it was, dawn and the sun was coming up. And then I went out on location and I photographed the mountains and the sagebrush and the rocks and stuff right behind where the actual boulder was as the sun was coming up. And then photoshopped the two images together and blew it up huge. And now I'm painting it as if it had never been moved with the sun hitting it. And it's been a big surprise. It's really coming to life. And I think, it's going to be a wonderful contrast to seeing, where it's sitting in a museum now, and probably rightfully so, because it was kind of a calling card. People would notice it, and that would draw the crowds out to these more sensitive sites. Mm-hmm. So for better or worse, it was removed, but to be able to paint it back in place.
Yeah, I think
it's a time warp.
I think it's really, what you're doing there is really important.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't have been removed. But then again,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
But it's not a perfect world, right?
Yeah.
So for you better or worse and all these different reasons. And then I got a little information on the rancher too. It turns out that they also had a rock quarrying business and moved large rocks. And then I really put things together. Like, that's how they moved it. Like, okay. So yeah. And it's fascinating to be able to like just kind of move this thing through the imagination and thin air back in time. And it's, 5,000 pounds or something like that, back where it was. And it's like, oh my God, I have a little window into like, if I was traipsing through the sagebrush in the 60s. I believe it's called a Great Basin variant rock art. So it's extremely old, but just, hey, what a background story on that. It's not just a painting.
No, it's not.
Yeah. It's got so much more to it right there. And I'm super excited about that one. That's the one I'm staring at right now.
Does did the owner does he still have family that's in that area?
I've thought about that one. I even thought when I was kind of putting together the composite images to go maybe approach the family, because there's some Polaroid kicking around in color. But I think other than this podcast, I'm going to keep it hush hush until the painting's totally complete. And then we'll see, because I'm sure, the rancher's long gone. He was kind of an older looking guy in this photo from the 70s.
Yeah.
So, but he's probably got some grandson or son that would just be blown away.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I'm loving this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So I haven't reached out yet, but I've thought about it. I know if somebody approached me with something like that, I would like to see it. Like, that's what they were talking about. Wow. That's, and it's fun to give like something in a museum. It's still, it's in a museum. That's why I'm doing this almost. So even if it was in place, that would obviously be ideal, but it's still, the public can see it. And I feel like that I'm kind of doing it a service just by continuing to learn by it, taking the story more than just like, oh, we've collected something and it's going to sit here. And I would definitely like to, before I do anything else with it, I want to approach and get, some native input on the whole thing. It's a very complex project with a ton of different people I need to approach to, even better educate myself before I go parading it around. And that's also part of the fun right there. I'm learning every step of the way.
Cody, do you have advice for aspiring artists?
Oh, yeah. Inspiring artists. I think find a mentor. I know people are, that are really thriving in the art community might not be around every corner, but if they can definitely find somebody who's got something they're interested in, they're a musician that's making it work, or they're an artist or a photographer, a number of things. If they can find somebody that's got some experience and has found some way to make it work from them, then there's a lot they can learn from that person. I have been stumbling around for years looking for that person. No, I have found quite a few people, definitely through earning my BFA. There's been some professors that turned out to be lifelong friends. There's definitely some people in the outdoors, writers and all kinds of people that I've collected to learn from to try to play into being successful as an artist. And it's worked out. I wouldn't be able to do it by myself, not by a long stretch. I've had a lot of help from everybody along the way, especially my wife. I definitely should mention her because she's really the brains of the operation. Without her, I wouldn't be able to submit anything. She proofreads. She really takes care of a lot of the business aspects, and she's a partner in going out on a lot of these excursions.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So I built my whole life around making it work. So I would tell them, like, if you really want to be serious about it, this is what it could take. You're really going to have to build your life around this, every aspect of it. If you want to get serious about being an artist or something like that, you're going to have to not only love it, but you're going to have to really, blood, sweat, and tears is the real medium. It's going to be different for everyone as far as what advice they need, but I would just find a support group and take what you can to make your goals happen, whatever they may be. That's the best advice. There's definitely no secret. If there was a secret, I'd let it out.
Almost every artist we interview talks about the importance of connecting with the art community.
Absolutely. You can't just, as much as I'd like to sometimes, just wander out in the middle of the wilderness, never to be seen again. or just bury myself in the studio. You know, there's a lot of logistics, applying for shows, grants, you know, residencies, just getting exposure, you know, setting up podcasts, everything like that. I've definitely, I'm not doing it all by myself. The painting, yes. The drawing, yes. But that's unfortunately just one part of it.
Do you sell a lot or get a lot of contacts via social media?
Almost primarily through social media. Go figure. Yeah. Like people scoff at, you know, Instagram or Facebook or TikTok and all these things. And I still do too. But that, you know, if it's not a commission and I just post a passion project of a drawing or something like that, it doesn't take long before somebody reaches out is seriously interested in it. So I've been very fortunate that way. I'm not represented by a gallery at the moment. I think that model is greatly changed over the past decade. You know, you don't have to be like, well, contact so-and-so and they'll give you a walkthrough of my available work. It's mostly just me online.
Your website is fantastic. You want to tell everybody how to find it?
Yeah, Desert Wake on Instagram, or just Google my name. Find me on Facebook or Instagram. Send me a message that way. I have a website, CodyChamberlin.art, that has all my contact stuff right there. Way to remind me to plug myself. That's great.
Well, of course. Well, that's how I found you and looked at all your art.
Yeah.
You know that your pieces are so big, and I'm wondering, is it hard sometimes to give those up, to sell those? Because I would have trouble with that.
Yeah, I do put everything into them, heart and soul. But after a while, they're going to do more out in the world on their own. I mean, I kind of think of it a little as like having children. Eventually, they need to go off to college and make their own way or figure it out and have their own life. And people will take them and cherish them. They're going to do a lot more out there than just, you know, decorating my studio walls. So I love the adventure of it and sending them out. And, you know, most of the people that reach out and one of my pieces resonate with, it's really found the perfect place. People just love it so much. Having, you know, some of this artwork, it's fantastic. I feel like they've found the perfect home. It's better with them than with me. So letting go is hard, but, you know, on to the next is kind of my attitude about it. And then, you know, just reaching that broader audience to get, you know, that connection with the environment. They need to leave. They need to go out in the world, get more exposure.
Sure.
I have a quick question. Your favorite artist?
My favorite artist is nature. Never have I ever come across something that's inspired me more than just being out and hiking across through the sage and the junipers. No artist can come close.
Boom, thank you. Which is always a good idea when we're hiking. I know that Linda says stop and look up.
Bingo. You know, if somebody can force you to pull over because there's a red-tailed hawk on a fence post, that's my people. Getting out there is what it's all about. So, I mean, if there's anything you can gather from my time spent here, it's just, you know, people should always keep that artistic avenue open, get out there and experience some of the wild, fall in love with it, become invested in it, and work towards a relationship with it for the future of us all.
Cody, we're ready for our last question. What has inspired you this week?
This week, what's inspired me? You know, I was just telling you guys right before we started this that I had just gone out on Saturday to a wilderness study area, to a wonderful remote desert mountain range in Utah, you know, the day before the storm. And just the wonderful trees growing out of the cliffs and the rocks up there. I found a really awesome little rattlesnake. Boy, he was upset with me. That was awe-inspiring, just being out there. And it was so windy because that storm was coming in, you know, it was blowing across the plains and everything. But as soon as we got clear up into this canyon surrounding the cliffs, it was just as calm as can be. And I thought that was really neat.
Well, absolutely. Well, Steve and I want to thank you for being on our podcast and sharing some of your art and your activism with us.
Thank you guys so much for reaching out. This has been great.
All right, Cody, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Talk
you.
soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I see it in
Broadcasting from the Mesquite Works Steam Center in the scenic Mojave Desert, the Artbox sponsors thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify and Amazon Music. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We welcome all comments. You can email us at artboxvv@gmail.com. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of its hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the Virgin Valley Artists Association.